I'm very pleased today to welcome Chui Chui Tan to come and talk to us about getting to know your international audience.
Thanks, James, and thanks everyone for having me today. And today we want to talk a bit more about the global audiences and what does that mean in terms of designing for them and growing your global audiences as well. Just to start off as well, is a few weeks ago I did an interview with a music label company, distributor based in India. For one of my clients, Spotify, and the account manager from Spotify actually has a very good relationship with this person in the music label company. So three of us is in the call and I was doing the interview. So at the end of the sessions, that person in the music label company, she kind of made a comment at the end saying, hey, Ashni, or whoever the name of the account manager, say, you have put on a bit of weight since I last saw you. And bear in mind, this session is being recorded, like these sessions, and it's live streaming as well. So in the back room where there are a lot of product managers and all the people that are actually listening in different countries like London, New York, Stockholm, they were just like, oh, wow, that is quite rude to ask that questions. Then that reminded me of many years ago, actually, I was traveling in China with a client from the US. And one day we went into clothes shops in the mall and in Shanghai. And as we walk into the shop and have a quick look and see nothing, and we're about to leave the shop, and the salesperson stopped us and told the client, say, oh, we have some clothes that can help you to hide your big arms. And which, as you know, it's kind of implied the arm is big and the client's a bit awkward and smile, and we left the shop pretty soon. And I know the salesperson came with a good intentions because they wanted to find something. What they wanted to say is find something, we can find you something nice for you. And the lady from the music label company was having a friendly chat with us after the session, saying, because they have good relationship. So it's quite common in Asia to be direct, but in the eyes of others from different culture, it could be seen as quite intrusive or offensive or rude. And this is just a very simple example to illustrate the differences in mentality and how people in different society, different culture, how they see things, how they interact, and how they interpret things. And that is what I focus on when I help businesses to define their strategies for markets in different parts of the world, based on a full understanding of their customers, their context, the market, and how they the social elements of it. And with all this insight, I then help the businesses and the clients to kind of provide a localized experience as much as possible for their customers, and so that they can grow their business globally as well. And throughout my career life, I have been doing that in many countries. So for example, I have done more than 50 so far, because I've been in this industry for like 15, 16 years. And there's a myth with the internet where we are all going to be similar, and everyone is connected. We are going to have these globalizations where everyone is going to be the same or similar in the way that they behave and everything. But that is never going to be the case, because even people are connected, and people will still be in their echo chambers and with people they know and being influenced by them as well. And you know, all these so-called of globalizations we have been talking for many decades. You can still see a lot of all countries, the US, UK, China, Russia, whichever country, everyone are still differs from one and another, from their historical point of view or political point of view or culturally point of view, especially culturally more than anything else in this sense. So to make sure the things that you design, the thing you created, the business, everything that works in different markets, it's not actually just about translating your website or your products from one language to the local language, but there's much more than that. And the efforts never end as well for the business or for yourself who actually design for or write for different countries. All this is not one-off effort, like you learn about one market and that is it, that is done, and you're sorted in that market, because things keep progressing, and you have to keep learning, and you have to see things from different angles, different aspects, and keep improving on that sense as well. And I wanted to start this talk by talking about a documentary by our beloved David Attenborough about Galapagos Island. In this island is situated near the equator of South America, with more than 500 miles from the coast of mainland Ecuador. It's the best place to study evidence of evolutions by natural selections. So take Galapagos penguins as examples. Penguin is my favorite animals anyway. So the closest living relative of Galapagos penguin is Magellanic penguins. And it was believed that many years ago, ages ago, some penguins were carried from southern Chile by storm and ocean current, everything. And they actually arrived in Galapagos. Somehow, these animals, these cold weather birds survived and multiplied in this island itself. But to adapt into a new environment, then their mainland islands, where they're coming from, where they came from, the Galapagos penguins have lost a lot of their fat, and they evolved to be smaller as a tactic to keep them cool. And they also have hairless spots on their cheeks to help them to release heat when it is needed as well. And all these adaptations are not just on the physical appearance, but also their developed behaviors to keep them cool. For example, they will stand with the flippers extended to aid the heat loss, or they swim quicker than any other penguins, which can reach speed up to 50 miles per hour underwater as well. So humans have adapted differently to different climate and resources and altitude as well. Our body, our gene, our physical features adapt throughout the centuries, depending on the environment our ancestors were in. So you might ask, like, why or what does this evolution theory have to do with our global audiences and customers and business as well? How do all these physical differences of your global customers can impact your business decisions in giving them a good customer experience? It can be from different level as well. So one example I always use is when it comes to shop display, that how high or low you want to actually put it, display your products in different countries. So Ikea is one of those who actually did very well in India. They spent a long time, a few years before they launched in India, anyway, to kind of make sure they got it right in their business, their proposition, their products, their display, and everything else. So in Ikea in India, they have their cabinets and countertops come at the lower heights, because in India, the women tend to be shorter than Europeans and Americans as well. And also, I'm sure that you probably have heard of this, or even yourself will say, oh, this country is a few years behind that country, or this region is falling behind and it needs to be catching up. We always make this kind of comparison and conclusions about market in terms of their infrastructure, in terms of their technology or applications or economy. And it seems like the case, like one country or one region have to lead and the other one have to catch up in terms of technology, in terms of all the different aspects as well. This sounds a bit like this linear human evolutions where we're all familiar, where we all start with from the apes and big jaws, and then we end up with modern man, where we are now. It's very straightforward, start simple and advanced. But the truth is that evolution is nothing like this. So this is a real evolution. So no one is advanced, and chimpanzee is living alongside with human, with spider monkey, and with every different species, all exist together. And it all starts from one base and then evolve based on their environment, how they adapt themselves to survive. And some might die along the way, some just like some culture might die along the way, but then some will actually survive and grow better. So it's a lot of things that influence how a creature evolve. It could be environment, could be a lot of things around them to make that, and that make them niche and evolve in different environment as well. So in that sense, no one is actually behind. We all evolve differently. Hence, we all have a different culture, different mentality, different habit or behaviors. And that's why this whole culturalization is about how you produce and design and write and create products for or experience for your global audiences have to change as well. So for example, Mpesa, which is a mobile payment, if you haven't heard of it, is very huge in Kenya because it works within their environment. So first reason is because they have, in Kenya, very low percentage of people actually have bank account because of limited access and also poverty as well. But then this country actually have a high penetration of mobile devices, not necessarily smartphones, but also sometimes basic phones as well, which allow them to kind of transfer money. And also they have one single, unlike here in the UK, we have Orange, we have O2, we have, you know, all these different Vodafone, all these different brand. But in Kenya, they have one very dominant mobile carrier, Safaricom. So once they adopt to it, it's easier to be kind of spread in different, around the countries as well. And also Kenya is very collectivist society, so social support is important. So being able to kind of transfer money quickly on the phone without having a bank to rural areas to support their family and everything, that seems to be very helpful. So with these all different reasons, the success of M-Pesa in Kenya is not by luck or coincidence. It is exactly what Kenyans need and its environment that they need as well. So to duplicate the same solution in other countries with a different setup problem, it probably wouldn't work, or you need extra work towards it to do that as well. So you can see our average countries have actually different things to kind of make sure that it's actually transformed in a way that work in different environment. Not long ago, I was in a conversation with an international audiobook company, and this person who came to me actually look after an overseas, their Middle Eastern market, and they came to me saying, "Oh, we have low conversion across the funnel. We have low retention. People don't tend to stay with our service for too long, and we have low engagement. People don't really use our audiobook app." They're not sure how to increase these rates. But this is probably mainly because they do not know about their customer in this market much. So unfortunately, when he go back to the European-based senior management, which is the HQ, and they suggest that, oh yeah, we won't know what the research is going to get us learn about. So let's do what we know, and we spend money on the other market on Facebook ads, and we get more sign up. Just let's do that. But this kind of way of thinking is very concerning and flawed in many ways, because what works in one market does not always work in other markets. And it applies not just on the language or a strategy, but it could be the marketing, could be the design, could be the business propositions. So for example, maybe Facebook is right, they get the right channel for this region, where people actually do hang out in Facebook and they see the ad and everything. But even so, because of the nature of the product's audiobook, seeing an ad on Facebook probably might not be even sufficient in giving the locals the confidence they need to check out the products to sign up, because of the low level of maturity of use of audiobooks. Unlike music, unlike other things, audiobook is a new thing, it's not a new habit. So seeing on Facebook is not going to help them on that. The other thing as well is that who really are your users? They say, oh, we have a lot of male audiences that we can see on from our list and database. But then actually in Saudi Arabia, it's only recently Riyadh Banks actually offers ladies bank where women can open their bank account themselves. In general, women are not allowed to open their bank account in Saudi. So it's not until 2 months ago, like Saudi Arabian Monetary Authority actually allows mothers to open bank accounts on behalf of their children without having to get consent from the court or from their husband. So in this case, I will ask the audiobook company as well, it's like, are your users really the men who pay for the subscriptions, or actually they pay, but the women are the one using it, and the women are the one having to want to continue using it. So it's kind of like having to understand those kind of cultural elements is really important in making decisions, not just look at the data you have. I like to use the metaphor of house party. So imagine you're putting together a house party, let's say in Indonesia. So let's say that is a newly launched market for you because it's huge at the moment. You want to get as many people in this country to go to your party as many as possible and stay in the party, so that the more people turn up and the more people stay, you'll get more profit. But so let's say you actually just focus on attracting and inviting locals to your house, and you manage to get it right. A lot of people come to your house, but what happens if they come to the house and found out that maybe the house decoration and setup felt too foreign to them, that they don't feel homey or comfortable, or the party food is not what they're familiar with or enjoy, or the crowd is not who they kind of familiar with or kind of want to hang out or resonate. The song is not what they like, or the party is not suitable for children because this might be a big issue because in Indonesia, parties are often family friendly. So would they stay? Would they come back? Would they take initiative and invite their friends to come to join you? Would they stay and come back again for the next party that you put on? So we all probably know the answer, probably not. So without knowing about your audience and their context in different markets, you might want to kind of make sure that you actually wouldn't know what will be resonating well for them, what kind of food will be good, and anything else apart from child-friendly you need to consider. So executing a strategy or design something, a product or writing a product without having a proper understanding of markets or local users is a bit like you're firing as many arrows as possible in the dark and not knowing where the target is, and then hopefully one or two will actually get into the target as much as possible. So it's a bit like doing everything in a blind. So how would you go ahead making sure you are doing as much as you can for your different markets and provide them as local experience as possible? So the first level, I actually divided into 3 high-level framework. So the first level is about establishing respect. For example, not creating showing content that could be offensive from religion's point of view, political point of view, or cultural point of view. Because if you get this wrong, it's very easily damage your business, and sometimes it could be hard to recover. So it sounds like quite simple and straightforward, but actually it's very important because it's a basis to form a relationship between you, your brand, your products, and your customers. So avoid doing mistake like this. Actually, could help you to kind of show to your customers that we respect you, we know you, we kind of trying to our best to kind of get to what you need. So these are just a few brands that they have to apologize to China, mainly because of geopolitical mistake they make. For example, I take one of them, let's say McDonald's. So they actually show an ad in Taiwan that included 2-second clip of a student taking student ID card and show Taiwan as a country. Just 2 seconds. That is all it needs to take to create a heated online backlash, and that McDonald's have to apologize and immediately withdraw the whole ad from Taiwan. And there are a lot more. Like for example, Marriott did it wrong because one of their agency they used actually create a survey that include Macau, Taiwan, Tibet as Hong Kong as a separate countries in their questionnaire. So you get the gist. So these are geopolitical mistakes that a brand should know about, and it can appear in your survey, in your language, in your website setting, or a country setting. But it also could be on your marketing and content as well. So for example, this advert from Pringles in 2015, Tesco actually created this and have the bacon flavored Pringles to kind of celebrate Ramadan for Muslim populations, and actually, as you know, like Muslim doesn't actually is not allowed to eat pork, and it's kind of culturally insensitive in offering bacon flavored Pringles as a part of Ramadan promotions. And some sensitivity could be on your content as well. For, I don't know whether some of you play games, but Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 2 and 3, they didn't get banned, but they were actually being complained, and then they removed certain things out from the one of the scene, because they actually, in the bathroom of one of the scene, they actually have this picture frame where carrying Islamic text, which translate into like Allah is beautiful and He loves beauty. But in this religion, Islamic religion, it's prohibited for Muslims to kind of utter Allah's name in the toilet or carry books or paper on them. So they kind of show disrespectful for the religion. So Call of Duty have to remove that quickly. So the other thing I was going to ask you to kind of have a think or have a quick sketch as well is to think about like draw something quickly on to represent the Asian cuisine. Could be an icon that represent that if you're going to design something. You can draw it or you can have it on top of it. Yeah. So many of you might actually draw this, and pretty straightforward, right? Bowl and chopstick, what can it go wrong? But in fact, actually, all this, in Asian markets, actually having chopstick in the bowl, especially standing straight directly on the bowl or on the rice or noodles, is actually representing serving food to dead people in most Asian culture. So if you're a designer or you are creating a content for your users, you have to make sure that actually you don't make this kind of mistake. So when talk about designing for global audiences, a lot of companies and businesses always say, yeah, we done it. We did localize. And when they say localize, they mean translations. But as I said at the beginning, the translation, localizations or culturalizations is more than just translations. So that is really something important to remember. So in terms of the first level that we just talked about, don't make mistake and everything, there's no complete guide, unfortunately, that you can just say, take it in and say, okay, which country don't make this kind of mistake, because the whole world is huge and there are a lot of things not to make mistake. But I think what is important is that when you create content or image or icon, or that might convey or touches on religion or implies some stereotype assumptions, you might want to take extra effort to kind of research into it a bit more, or do some desk research, or even get some local connections or network friends that you might have and say, we actually have this idea, what do you think? Because all this means a lot of mistakes are pretty obvious and you can easily pick up by local general publics, and they don't actually have to be cultural expert to do that. What's important to you as a creator or as someone who design or create something for local market is for you to be sensitive and thoughtful and don't make mistakes and assumptions and stereotyping as well. So the second level is what I call cultural expectations. So this level can be overlooked and could feel trivial to many people, but it's very important because it could hinder the customer's experience in using the product. So for example, we take French example, you can say, okay, we translate language into France, but then French can be used in Switzerland, it could be used in Canada and French can be used in these three countries, Canada, Switzerland, and France. But then when you kind of look into it, their date format could be different. Their currency, their one might be different. So changing the language itself wouldn't be enough. There will be more of the things to help you to kind of localize the experience. And the other things like names, you say, just name, what can you go wrong? So you have to think about the order, first name and first name and last name, because it's in many countries and they actually have the last name first. In Malaysia, I'm Tan Chui Chui, I'm from Malaysia. In the UK, for the last 18 years, I've been calling myself Chui Chui Tan. So it's kind of like a different way of doing kind of addressing your users or your customers in the right way. So you need to make sure your field is captured correctly as well, because people don't tend to read. They will just fill in the order that they're familiar with. And then you have middle names. Like my middle names, I don't have a middle name. Chui Chui is my first name, but a lot of in the UK, my banks, HSBC, Halifax, and everyone, even HMRC was using my first name in as a middle name. So I become Chui Tan in all my documents, which drives me crazy. because Chui Chui is my first name. I should be addressed in that. So, and then you have length, you have symbols, and you have a lot of other things as well that you have to consider. Same for numbers, symbols, and all these different formatting. So a lot to think about. That's why I actually created a global design guide, which covers insight into how to different countries, from typography to naming convention, numeric and social platform, and also payment method as well. Because these are actually just essential informations, basic essential informations that you could have to kind of help you to design and create the localized element. As I say, it could seem small, but it could make a lot of difference. Like these clients of mine, like Ritz-Carlton, they just make some small changes on their website, and it actually huge in the turnover as well. And the last one is on, and the final level is on the cultural even experience enhancement, like something that you need to go beyond to provide your users to thrive. And this requires a lot of insight and fuller understanding as well. So I'm not sure you know this movie from Pixar, Inside Out. So Riley's that was struggling to feed, one of the scene, Riley's that is struggling to feed Riley's broccoli. Like most toddlers, they kind of like disgust with the vegetable and they refuse to eat. I don't know you can see any difference on this apart from her trying not to eat. So if you can see the vegetables change. So from broccoli, it changed to bell peppers. And the right scene is actually from Japan, for Japanese audiences. What happened is when Pixar was doing research and understanding, they learned that actually in Japan, broccoli is not considered to be disgusting to the kids. Kids love them. So they actually found out actually green bell peppers is actually, a lot of kids didn't like it. So they remodel and animate a few the scenes to separate it out for Japan market. And this is not only the main scene, like there's a hockey scenes that they have, and then some actually markets actually see football or soccer on the screen. So in fact, actually Pixar changed for this animations. They actually changed 28 graphics across 45 individual shots where they localize for different markets as well. Another example is why it's important to provide content relevant to users is that, so when we did research with BMJ, British Medical Journal, we showed this our European participants and medical publications on the website. And the thing they asked about is the citations and reference and everything else. But when we show Japanese participants the same publication, the question they ask is, who else actually look into this information? What do my peers think about? And therefore, the thing that they look into is very different. So this has to go back to 2,500 years ago, Confucius, Chinese philosopher, teaching about how Asian communities should behave and interact in terms of collectivism. So individualism is negatively viewed in collectivist society. So there's a Japanese saying, say, the nail that sticks out have to hammer down, because you don't want to seem different. You want to be part of the community. So this means the European culture and Asian culture and everyone is very different, because one is more collectivist society, one is more individual society. So you need to make sure that actually how you find informations and provide the information that your customer wants have to actually meet to the things that you design or create. So on the left, you have cultural context. All the things, some of the things, these are just examples of things that differentiate the society in what they do and create. And then that will influence their mentality, their needs, their attitudes to a certain thing, their behavior. And then that is how it's going to define your products, your features, your business, and so on. So it's very important to look at this on the left side, on the cultural context. So this context could seem small, but when you gather them together, it will be big, and because it gives you a fuller picture about your users. I created these cultural snippets for a number of countries, and they're meant to be short because it was a small project, a side project I was doing, like 112 1,400 characters for a LinkedIn post last year during the pandemic. So you can see actually within that you have, for example, for Philippines, they have this mentality about we only want to get most out of what I paid. So they have this local term called ayaw malugi, means I don't want to feel cheated. So they can buy oil by cup or cigarette by stick or garlics by 4 cloves and things like that. So people only buy things they need. And because that is seen as affordable solutions. But as a result of that, even wealthier people or consumers now, they still do that, but they just buy a lot more multiple sachets or multiple sticks and everything, because even though they can afford it now, but because this is a habitual and familiar behavior to them. So what does that mean? So for example, what does this insight could tell you and influence your products? So it might be, if you have a subscriptions model products, then you might want to have a different, smaller package or monthly subscription package, or even weekly or daily package for countries like Philippines, where people only want small packages with less price and less features that you give them. So you might have to think about how you cannot do that in localizing the context, the products they want based on their context. So you always can take these snippets and identify the so what, and then kind of identify the part that it can impact on your products and the things that you created. So example as well, when I was working with Babylon Health, and they got this Gates Foundation's funding to kind of understanding HIV patients in African community on HIV, TB, and mental health to kind of help them to create a digital products to help them to kind of manage their conditions. So one of the things that we learned from the people is kind of they collect money, and then they kind of get into the support group that they give up to each other, but it's not a payment as such. They kind of gather together, and then the money they have to give to one of the person who needs money the most, or they do it as a project. So we have a sewing project, so everyone use that money to sew. But this sometimes could also be the reasons where patients stop going to this support group, because they can't contribute. We got all this insight, but we can't understand why they do this, why they actually have this kind of group, until we dig out insights separately, not from the users. We understand this Harambee culture that they have. It's called pull together culture, where Kenyans will work together, self-help. This is because after independence, their first president actually strategically pulled the country together to build a nation, because the government itself can't do everything to build a big country up. So they need everyone to self-help each other. So this Harambee behaviors or habit actually built at that time. So they're now still doing that. So this kind of background is important and useful as well for us to understand the context and why people behave the way they behave as well. This is what I call holistic approach. So you don't look at just one thing, you look at the overall on the things that you want to look into. And sometimes the thing you look into for one business might be different for different business. So the example I'm going to give is, so like for example, when I work with Asana, a work management tool in Japan, we kind of look into the cultural elements of hierarchical culture in Japan. We look into like making decisions. Everyone has to agree have the consensus decision before everyone can make a decisions. We actually learn about the culture where it is rude to assign people on tasks without talking to them first, because they might not be able to do it, and you kind of assign to them and they might feel like, oh, you are putting me in a difficult position. But then all these insights that we kind of get into hierarchical organization structure and everything, when we do the same research for Spotify in Japan, it's completely different. We don't look into the cultural element, the organization cultural elements and so on, but we look into other things. For example, people's behavior, their interactions with music, why they love the CDs so much, because you can still buy CDs or rent CDs in library or shops, rip it off and then return it for €2.50, for example, and it's legal. So we kind of trying to learn about why they love about the physical side, buying, collecting, and how can Spotify actually transfer that on the digital aspect on their products. So as you can see, the elements you look into for different products or industry could be different as well. Also, learning about your customer and market with different culture, you need to make sure you ask the right questions, use the right research approach. So because a lot of people say, yeah, we do research, we do survey and everything, and this tells us this. It's very dangerous sometimes if you do it wrongly, ask the wrong question, you get the wrong bias insights, and then you actually make the wrong decision completely. So for example, Bosch, the washing machine electronic company, they kind of planned many years ago, to create a new washing machine for India market. They kind of get a market research company to do survey and ask the question and everything. And the output was telling Bosch that you should create a washing machine that specifically deal with germs and bacteria in the way that no other washing machine does. And that is what Indian people say they want in their survey. But to validate that, Bosch actually conducted ecosystem research. So the user research team went out to India to observe, to talk to people in India. And they found that actually nobody actually care about or worries about germs and bacteria, because they actually think fight bacteria is not going to happen, and actually not effective in their environment. And also sometimes it's actually good to expose to certain amount of germs and to develop strong immune system. Of course, if you ask someone, would you like to have a washing machine that kills germs and bacteria, people wouldn't say no, would they? But then you kind of need to go into their context and see what they do. So instead, in the user research, when they go out and see how people do and ask the right questions, they actually learn that in India, like a lot of Asian countries, it's very common for grandparents to live with parents and the child, like treat multi-generations in one roof. And unlike in the UK or Europe, they do washing every day because the weather is hot and humid. And a lot of them are women who do the laundry as well. So what they need to do is actually, before they go to work, they put in the laundry in the washing machine, they take it out, put under the sun to be dry in time for them to get home in the evening, so that they can do the same thing the next morning. So what does that mean? This means the wash cycle has to be short so that they can do that in the morning, cut it out, put it away. And this is important market. Then important for this market than the bacteria. So this is just an example of how important to kind of do it right as well. And the other thing I just want to quickly say, so it's a lot of companies actually think like mistake they make is like, we only think about internalizations and culturalizations, and we only need to take actions once we're ready to go into other markets. And this mentality actually could cost a lot of money and down the line, so when you start to do it. So I have created this international business growth framework that I built to help many of my business clients as a workshop, regardless of which stage they are in. So it could give them the confidence that any effort or time they want to invest, they could use the output of this exercise. Each of them have actually the specific exercise for each block as well, so that they can continue using it and identify and answering the right questions and asking the right question and so on. Oops. So, and one thing I want to mention as well is that the insight you get actually can touch on many areas, like your products, your marketing, your proposition, your partnership, and everything. So it's really important for you to work with different teams within your organizations as well. And don't forget that when you work with different markets, it's as important to find the similarities as in differences. So one strategy I always advise clients to do is actually you want to have a core experience that share within all markets, and then you find the right groupings among different markets in specific topics as well. But you can see actually sometimes in one market, it doesn't really, they might share this, two markets might share the same thing for features, they might not share the same thing for payment methods, for example. So you need to be able to adapt and make your framework more adaptable and efficient as well. And it's an ongoing process. Like I say, it's not one-off. You want to keep continuing, and you did very well. You launch and get very good feedback, but it's continuous process to continue learning as well. So sometimes so it's really important to kind of make sure that you understand you don't make the strategy first and then trying to fit into the user's context, because what you want to do is the other way around. You understand them and then you fit your puzzle into what they want as well. And I kind of want to kind of reaffirm that you need to understand the cultural context first and understand what is the reason people behave and have a certain mentality, and then say, okay, what does that mean to your business or the things that you create? I know it could sound like a lot of work to do. Is that worthwhile? Company always say, oh yeah, we don't have to do that, and because it invests a lot of money and time, and let's take a shortcut and things like that. But small things like that will actually help very much in terms of how your product is going to be built and so on. It might be 10 minutes. It might be a specific amount that you have to pay in advance to do that, to kind of get the insights. But actually, it was a good investment on that as well. So that is it. I kind of like want to make sure that in terms of like identify and answering the right question and everything. And there are a lot of elements. It's a big topic, and you wouldn't learn everything in one go. And if you look for a magic wand and say, Chui, do you have an answer, that a guide or somewhere you can link to help me to understand how people in this country behave or what? Unfortunately, there's no such a thing as this. There's a reason for that, because it's too huge and just hard to put together. That's why nobody be able to do that. But this also make it interesting and exciting for you to continue learning and find to learn about your users and customers. So enjoy the journey of learning about your global customers and their context, and design the best experience you could for them as well. So yeah, so that is it.
Thank you. Yes, there's something about the idea of a constantly developing complex system, which I think a lot of people working in tech comms would be able to relate to, having to work in and work with. But obviously, it's a very different context in which you're approaching it. Whilst people can have a moment to reflect and think about any questions they would like to ask, I'm just going to finish the recording with a quick reminder of our podcast and next month's talk. So our podcast from September was a review of the TCUK conference itself, all the different presentations, and actually Linda Robbins, our president, was able to give an interview as well about TCUK and the ISTC. And the talk next month will be at a later time, because our speaker is dialing in from the US. So it's going to be at a later time of 4 p.m. So I hope some of you will be able to make that. And that's going to be about training. It's the third of 3 talks that have been given over TCUK presentations previously, and we've managed to get the third one in as part of our TCUK online series.